Call the November 19th, 2015 meeting of the City of Sebastian Plains Zoning Commission to order, please. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do the roll call, please.
Mr. Roth?
Here.
Mr. Dodd?
Here.
Ms. Cottenberg? Here. Mr. Carter?
Present.
Mr. Reyes?
Here.
Mr. McManus?
Here.
Mr. Kieselbosch?
Here.
Mr. Alvarez?
Okay, as far as brief announcements are concerned, Ms. Kattenberg has been appointed to a permanent position on the commission, and so she's no longer an alternate. I'd like to welcome you as a permanent member. That means we currently have an opening for an alternate. If someone is interested in that position, they need to contact the city clerk and fill out the appropriate paperwork to apply for that. Also, when we get to the second quasi-judicial hearing this evening, one of our members, Mr. Kazenbach, has filed a moratorium of voting conflict and will be removing himself from that hearing. He happens to be related to one of the people involved in the project. So, okay. Does anybody have any announcements or agenda modifications they would like to make? Seeing none. All right. Regular minutes for the September 17th meeting. If anyone has any changes, please speak up. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion the minutes be approved as submitted for the September 17th meeting.
A second.
The motion, second, Kazenbach.
I'm sorry, who
Mr.
seconded it?
Kazenbach.
Okay. Mr. Kieselbosch?
Yes, second.
Mr. Roth?
Okay. All in favor of the motion, I'll just all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. The motion carries. Trying to get my little microphone thing to work, and I'm having a hard time doing it. Okay, we'll go forward. Okay, we have two quasi-judicial hearings this evening. The first one is for a site plan for the hangar. Mr. Ginsburg, would you like to read the title of that, please?
Yes, sir. The City of Sebastian is seeking site plan approval for Sebastian Airport Hangar C, one-story, 15,694 square foot structure with offices, 214 Airport Drive East, Airport Industrial Zoning District, AI Zoning District.
Okay, do any commissioners have any ex parte communications they'd like to report on this activity? All right, seeing none, or hearing no one indicate that they have any. Is there anyone who's going to present factual evidence in this hearing? If so, please stand and let the city attorney swear you in.
Solemnly swear the testimony you'll provide at tonight's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, would the applicant like to come forward, make a presentation?
Good evening. Actually, the applicant is the city today. And so for this project, the city of Sebastian is the Sebastian Municipal Airport. As the airport manager, I'll be giving the presentation. And in addition, I'll have our consultant.
Tell those guys in the back this thing's not working.
I'll have our consultant come up and answer any technical questions. But I just want to highlight, just in the general sense, what the airport project is. This hangar, we call it a hangar C within the municipal airport. It's the third large hangar within the west side of the airport. What I handed you out, which is a little aerial, just to show you what it looks like. At the last go around for the last building we did was for the storage building. There was some, I think, some issues regarding where it looks and how it looks. So this will give you an aerial view. This aerial shot was taken actually of today. We had the airport restriped in the last 2 days, so we had to get an aerial shot. So this aerial shot is as of this morning today of that side. The Hangar C location is just slightly north of Hangar B. The two hangars you see right now are Hangar A and B that's present right now. That is all part of the airport master plan, which is all part of the airport layout plan. We have to follow those guidelines under our FAA procedures. So this building is all within the overall master plan of the building, as well as for the stormwater system, as well as for any kind of planning for runways and taxiways. The actual hangar, a little history behind the Hangar B project was, in the early stages, hangars A and B are identical in size, about 15,000 square feet. Currently, Hangar A is being rented out to La Preste Aviation. Hangar B just recently got rented out to Velocity, another aviation-related building. Hangar C was going to be identical to hangars A and B. However, the tenant that's going to be using Hangar C, hopefully, is Eagle Air Transport, and they're out of Chicago. And they are the ones who right now currently operate the transports for our Sebastian skydives. And they use what they call an otter plane, a dual twin otter plane. To make them fit the otters, 3 otters, into the hangar, this hangar had to be reshifted again. So the hangar shape changed from hangars A and B to a new configuration that's a lot wider. Same 1,500 square foot, but the building was basically turned. So it's basically just one big hangar now. If you look at the layout plan, it looks like a hangar now. It's got the sliding doors, like a true hangar, instead of a wing door. And the reason why is just to accommodate the twin otters. And that's the reason why the building got changed. It got delayed. And with that, we had to redo the entire design of the hangar. The consultant's here to talk about it. But overall, in a nutshell, the project itself, it sits within the parameters of the airport. The hangar space meets all the requirements through the fire department, the building department. And at this time, I'll be happy to answer questions, or if there's any technical questions, I'll have our consultant answer any technical questions.
To follow the mechanics, does the city staff have any comments that they'd like to make? Since the applicant is a city staff, I'm assuming you don't, but. Or did you just make those?
Just a quick things to just go over through the staff report, and Frank hit most of them. As you can see, it meets all the codes for setbacks, requirements for impervious and pervious coverage. I did want to note on the last page for the recommendation, the last one was to receive the IRC Fire Department site plan review approval, and we did receive that this week. So that is a condition no longer needed.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant, Mr. Carter?
Yes. In changing the design of the hangar from A and B because of the potential of having it leased out, what happens in the future with this change if they no longer are the tenant?
Actually, it was more fortunate to have this configuration. The 2 hangars that we had leased out, I hate to say the word, it's more like it's not like a hangar where it has the side lean-tos are compartments, so it's made more for like components. I can't use the word, manufacturing because it's not, it's a hangar in storage, but it has, facilities on the side that they use, and that's what the 2 tenants wanted. Typical hangars, what you want is to hold airplanes. Hangar C is going to hold nothing but airplanes. So I think for the long term, if the lease agreement with the Eagle Air Transport doesn't work out, or if they decide to move on, it's a more of an opportunity to lease it out to another aviation for aircraft use. So it actually is a better use to have a full hangar than to have a partial hangar with components on each side.
Well, then that begs the question, then why do we design the other 2 buildings
It was
that way?
it was tenant driven. That's what
Okay.
they wanted.
Thank you.
You have a question?
Yes, my question is, what is the clearance requirement, setback requirement from the runway?
I'm going to have our consultant answer, and this was tricky too, and he's correct.
Yeah.
The hangar, it's nothing like the city setback. We have to have airspace and runways and taxiway setbacks because there's a glide plane for the planes and everything. I'm going to have our consultant talk about that. It was challenging to move the building so we were outside that clear zone. So I'll have our consultant speak on that.
Good evening, everybody. I will address that question first. The FAA typically reviews all buildings that are put on airports to make sure that there's no conflicts with air traffic, no safety issues associated with that. So there is no necessary setback that's fixed. It's based on a set of imaginary surfaces that basically are put around every airport to protect the airspace around it. And we've analyzed that and placed Hangar C, out of those imaginary surfaces so that there should be no safety issues. The FAA still does have to review this project, and we don't anticipate any issues with that.
Okay.
Mr. Alvarez?
No.
Anyone down here have any questions, Mr. Carter? Yeah, okay, Mr. Roth?
Just a general question in the design. I noticed that on drawing A10, which is one of the last ones, there's a rolling chain link fence, which has barbed wire on the top of it, and that's on the side of the building away from the doors for the airplanes to go in and out. Is that only for ventilation purposes, so the building doesn't blow up with a lot of wind from one side?
That is put in there so that the tenant, if he wanted to, could open the rolling door that's, actually part of the hangar, and then close that fence gate for security purposes, but still have ventilation if he's, working on the airplane inside the hangar, primarily for ventilation purposes while keeping the hangar secure.
Okay. The other question is kind of on that same line. There's a hinged gate on the next drawing, way over on the, would be the left-hand side of the drawing. And it looks like it has the same purpose as that, as the security gate, since you're calling it that, to protect the integrity of the building once the door is open.
Just to make sure I'm in the correct location, you're on sheet A 2.0?
Correct, yes.
That's correct, okay. Towards the bottom left?
Correct.
Okay. If you go back to sheet A 1.0, the floor plan again, what you're looking at is actually exterior to the building. It's a compressor room that's towards the bottom left of the plan view on that sheet. That is actually exterior to the building, and those are exterior fence gates just to close that off and keep it out of view.
Okay, that answers that. And just a general question on the that oil sand liquid separator unit that's in there.
Sure.
Does that actually pump the oil residue that's captured from that the water groundwater or floor water that empties into the drain? Is that separated and then pumped off somewhere? The oil that's captured?
It is captured and then taken from that location so that anything that bypasses that is not, it's not something like fuel or anything that's, because outside, once you get outside of that oil separator, it connects into the sanitary system and you can't have, fuel or anything that's flammable
Okay.
going into.
That
into the
explains it.
sanitary.
I was wondering where it went, and that's why the separator is in place.
Correct. And we anticipate that separator will catch more domestic type things like silt and mop water, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Not necessarily a fuel spill.
And the colors of the building are the same as the two buildings that are there now, and the division line where the color breaks. There's a notation of that. What is the different color that's used? I was there today during daylight hours, and I didn't really catch a different color on the top or the bottom of any of the other buildings. Or is the color difference so minor that it doesn't show up?
The intent is to match the color system of the hangars next door. If there is no color change, then we'll remove that.
Okay,
Mr. Roth, we had noted on page 3 of the staff report, and I had taken the colors from the hangar B. It's light stone and desert sand, so if there's a obvious distinction between those, and then there's an emerald green trim. So those will match those colors as close as we can from the hangar B and hangar A paint choices.
okay. Visually, there's not much of a difference, so that's probably why. Okay, that's the extent of my questions. Thank you.
Louise, do you have any questions?
No.
Mr. Reyes? McManus?
None.
Okay. And thank you. I'm going to open it up to the public now, if anyone wants to speak. I don't have any questions. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward plan. A couple of things that I noticed on the previous hangars have all been taken care of. The oil separator and the stuff that needs to be done has all been done on it. So, does anyone in the public wish to speak in opposition of this request? Seeing none. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak in support of this request? Seeing none. Since we didn't have any public issues, I don't really need to offer an application for the applicant or the staff to discuss those. So, commissioners, it's now time for us to deliberate. And does anyone have any comments or questions that they want to ask?
I'd like to ask one more question to the airport manager. The plane that's going in this hangar, you mentioned it's a Twin Otter, or it's
That's
propeller
correct.
type of plane?
Pardon?
It's propeller type
Yes,
of
it is.
plane?
Yes, it is.
Does this airport allow jet engine type planes, or is it too small for that?
It's based on the size of the runways, and that's what controls the type of the plane. You can't have a smaller, but because of the size of the runway, it controls the type of the plane. So mainly what we have is all propeller crafts on the airport.
I was just curious if a tenant went in there and wanted to work on jet engines in this big hangar, test running them and all that. Is there any kind of noise ordinance against that kind of stuff?
Actually, the twin turboprops is a lot louder than the jet. Just want to give you a side note.
So you answered my question
Yes.
right there. Thank you very much.
And they're out there right now. These Otters are out there right now as we speak. So,
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, then I'll entertain a motion, someone would like to make one. And also, remember, under the staff's recommendation, condition number C is no longer relevant according to the staff report.
I'll make a motion that we approve this, subject to items A and B under the staff recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any comments or discussion on the motion? Say none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kieselbosch,
Yes.
Ms. Cottenberg,
Yes?
Mr. Roth,
Yes.
Mr. Dodd,
Yes.
Mr. McManus,
Yes.
Mr. Reyes,
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, city staff. Now we have a quasi-judicial hearing. Let the record note that at this time, Mr. Kieselbosch is leaving the dais. Mr. Ginsburg, would you like to read the title for item 6B?
Yes, sir. This is an application by Mark and Kathleen Gingras. They're seeking site plan approval, conditional use permit, and a waiver for a bed and breakfast, a two-story structure with a parking garage underneath, 1690 Indian River Drive, commercial waterfront residential, CWR zoning district. Requested waiver from the Land Development Code, section 54-4-21.A.7, Riverfront Overlay District landscape requirements.
Okay, Mr. Ginsburg, I feel like that since the member of the commission is actually doing a presentation, that we probably should at least ask the commissioners if anyone feels like that would obstruct their ability to fairly evaluate this. Is that reasonable?
It's reasonable.
Okay.
It's not required,
Yeah.
but it is reasonable.
All right, so at this time, I'm asking the commissioners if the fact that Mr. Kazenbosch is a member of the commission will impact your ability to fairly evaluate this application in your own mind.
No.
Not at all.
So, okay. I don't think so either, but I felt like I needed to ask that, so anybody who happens to be watching this or later questioned it. Okay. So let the record show that the commissioners felt that they are not, they do not have a problem fairly evaluating the application. Okay, would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Yes, I'm the engineer for this project, and you have already my excuse for voting rights. And this project is located on 1690 Indian River Drive, and it has a 50 square feet of land, and out of that is 1,000 square feet is a wetland. And we're putting about 30% of the building, which is 1,757 square feet. And it's a 3-story building, is a Key West style residential building. And it has a ground floor is a parking garage, and the second floor is a 3 rooms, which gonna be rented, and the third floor is a owner residence. So if we go for 3 rooms and owner residence, we need only 5 parking space. But we are thinking we might make a 4-room out of the third floor. And as you have this project, I think.
Mr. Kazenbosch, before you continue, were you actually sworn in when I swore in the others?
Just like that, I think I did over there, that's not enough.
No, that's fine. Was everyone who's going to speak on this also sworn in at the beginning of the,
Actually, if there's anyone in the audience other than these 2 gentlemen, they were not. So if anyone is going to speak.
if anybody is going to speak on this application, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you'll provide before the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ginsburg, for picking up on that.
Okay, so this is a Key West style 3-story building. Ground floor is a parking area, second floor is a 3-bedroom, 3 rooms, which gonna be rented, and the third floor is a owner residence. And as you see, we has covered all the comment from that from engineers and city staff. And only one concern they have is for parking is vehicle movement. So I think I will let Dory go first, and then I will present my situation, how we could handle that. That'll be fine, Dory? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm just going to briefly go through our staff report just to point out some items of importance that we wanted to make sure were a part of the record. Mr. Kazenbosch has mentioned this is a .13 acre piece of property, 5,850. There is a 990 square foot area of wetlands, of course, towards the river area, that gets to be counted towards their open space, but there won't be allowed any development in that area. And if you had a chance to look through the environmental report, they are proposing to put a sign, a nice wooden sign that's going to say buffer area, do not disturb. And so there won't be, I don't know if they can put some sort of little path to the water for residents. I'll have to check with DEP on that. But the gist of that wetland area will not be disturbed. It's not going to be a beach or a place where they can have the guests sit or anything. It's going to be an environmental wetland area. On the setback, on page 3, we have reviewed the setbacks. We wanted to bring forward that as we were doing the staff report and rechecking all of our, going through the code for the CWR, we had discovered that if the commercial setback, or the commercial building, this commercial project is abutting a residential use, the setback would be 10 feet instead of 5. And yes, as we were going through this process, this is one of those last-minute items that we discovered. We put it in there. We thought, you know what, let's just get it out on the floor. It will be another variance that we'll need. But due to the nature of the zoning district of commercial waterfront residential, it's already a mixed use. At any time, that property could add a commercial use to it. It will be a variance that staff will recommend approval to the Board of Adjustment for. And it's, instead of the 10, they'll be at 6.3, so it'll be a variance for 3.7 feet.
Now, that property, I don't want to interrupt, but I'm
That's okay.
kind of confused a little bit. Is that the property just south? Is that part of the house across Indian River Drive? Is that property cross Indian River Drive?
Yes, there's a residential house that's on the corner of Davis and Indian River Drive. It's a triangle piece of property, but it is one tax parcel with the property on the south side.
That's what it looked like.
And
on
there's
that.
a rope fence, there's a fishing, cleaning fishing area, there's a little fire pit there, and the pier, the dock, that is for that property on the
Right,
corner.
okay. All right. So that's the reason that you're viewing that as fully residential. It's not developable residential at this point in time unless they separate the lot some way or another.
No, based on the zoning district, the RM8 codes are allowed, so it's 8 units per acre, so it could be kept as one parcel, and there
Right.
could be a second unit on that east side.
Okay.
Residential or commercial because of the mixed-use designation.
All right.
Continuing on, the proposed driveway into the site is 12 feet wide, so the code does require for a two-way drive 22 feet. So we did note that that was going to be a required variance. Also, as you go into that parking area, based on the size, the width and the length of the parking spaces, a 25-foot drive aisle is required per code, and they are proposing 17.7. So there is a reduction in that drive aisle, and a variance will need to be granted for that. I think that leads us into our next point that we wanted to, there is a code that requires that if you do have I guess what we're going to call a dead-end drive aisle, that adequate turnaround shall be provided. The word adequate can be subjective, and so staff has felt, or we feel that there's not adequate turnaround, but the Planning and Zoning Commission may feel that there is from your review. And so we're going to kind of leave that in your hands, that if you feel it's adequate, it's a variance that they will not need. If you feel it's not adequate, it would be another variance added that they will have to get from the Board of Adjustment. Part of all of the concerns about the parking is because of the load-bearing support walls that are in the parking garage. And we had done some initial search of, just from the web, getting the width and length of a car, and you'll see the attachments that we had done to the, very simple, but we had concerns with cars backing out of the 3 parking spaces that they have. 6 spaces are required. They are requesting parking in lieu for 3 of those spaces, and then the 3 that will be in the parking garage, 2, what we saw on the plan was 2 regulars and 1 handicap, and that's how we had reviewed with our concerns on the adequate turnaround and being able to back out and having to get the front of the car away from the wall first before you could turn. So we do have, staff does have some concerns with the parking garage and the in and out of vehicles. There is a turnaround area, but we still have concerns that once you do pull in and the parking spaces are full, is it going to be clear that you can go forward and then back into the turning area and get out, or is your first initial response going to be to back up the driveway and back out onto Indian River Drive? And we just hadn't been convinced that there was a clear process for the parking in there. They are requesting also, as part of the application, a waiver for the riverfront overlay landscaping. We have not brought changes back to the board yet, but from our last discussion, it was, the board was leaning to at least possibly make the riverfront area adhere to the county 512 overlay district. So we did work with Bosch, and we got those figures. What is proposed, or what they're proposing would currently meet the 512 overlay district. There is a request for a waiver on most of the foundation landscaping and some of the perimeter counts on the sides and the front. And that would have to, a motion, as part of your motion, if you could consider that waiver. At this point, they are meeting all of the conditional use criteria. There was really only three, besides the required findings, there was three specific criteria. The one regarding, because of the property to the south being a residential use, they are proposing a 6-foot-high opaque landscape buffer on that south property line. We do have, and that's why we had provided the environmental report to you. They have, yes.
Let's,
Yes.
don't-
Yeah, and that resident, if you can, you'll come up and he'll.
yeah, okay, yeah.
There is, the environmental report had been provided to you also. I don't know if you picked up on it, but a quick history of the property. There was previously a residential house there, and before that, it had actually been a gas station. And when the hurricane 2004 demolished the house, there was some underground fuel tanks. Those were properly, they do have permits for the demolitions, and removal of those tanks had all been properly taken care of. And in the property file, we do have letters from DEP stating that the property is in compliance with regards to removal of those gasoline tanks. The house was destroyed, had some bad damage in the hurricanes. They were going to rebuild and got some variances for that, and at the last minute just decided not to rebuild the house, and everything was taken, and that's how we've gotten to the property being vacant. At this time, the city is, I did want to mention too that we do have in the file letters from DEP and Army Corps that have all said that there are no additional permits from them that they will need for this project. They do have the initial set of plans and have reviewed that. So we have listed after your questions are answered, at this point we weren't ready to make a formal recommendation of denial or approval, but we have listed, if you do decide to recommend approval, proposed conditions, and of course there is our denial, and any questions we're here to also answer.
Yes, as Dory said, we're looking two variants, one for the driveway and one for the parking aisle. And the second, we're looking for the landscaping waivers from the commission. And fourth concern is they have the vehicle movement in the parking area. So I just have an option. I want to show you what we could propose to do that.
Can you broadcast it on that the viewer works correctly? Okay.
Well, okay.
Okay. Yeah, we need to make sure that the audience and the TV camera pick up on it.
All right. This is first page is a list of few compact cars and dimensions.
Okay.
Okay. The reason we're proposing this thing, the third parking space, which is tight because of the shear wall and columns, it is difficult for the big car to come out from there. So I'm proposing that we should convert that space into a compact car space. So all these first 8 cars are compact cars, they all work there. And the Dory has an exhibition with the Ford Taurus, which is a mid-sized car, and that is 17 feet long, and that is tight for that car. So second page is exhibit A, which is have a Toyota Yaris, which is 6 by 13. If you see this exhibit, it works fine. It's a compact car. And you can see how they're going on the second page of exhibit A. And then exhibit B, which is a car pull out straight from the parking and then turn easily. So this is my request that we could convert that parking space into the compact parking, and then it will work fine.
And
That's what
you
we
need a
are
copy
right
of
now.
that, don't you? Give Jan a copy of that.
Copy of that.
Okay.
And all other concern we have met, all the city engineer has concerned, we met everything there, so.
Okay, any of the commissioners have questions they'd like to ask at this time? Mr. Roth?
Yeah.
Is that property directly to the south actually a residential lot, or is it very skinny residential lot?
It's actually part, the house across Indian River Drive, on the west side of Indian River Drive, from that lot that's south of this one, that house is, that property is part of that same property. That's basically a piece of property that spans Indian River Drive. They have a house on the west side, and then a beachfront riparian rights on the west side. It's probably big enough at some point in time, if they wanted to build something on it, they get permits to do that, but right now, it's part of that other residential lot. It's all one lot.
So it is technically big enough to build something on?
Well, they would have to go through some zoning criteria, and it's relatively small. I mean, it would be difficult to build a whole lot on there, because you'd have, but almost what they would have to do is replace the residential use to something else and build on both sides of Indian River Drive to do that, because of the size of it. But it is residential, because it's part of that same lot that the house, that has the house on the west side of Indian River Drive. Are you finished?
Do we know the landscape plans, I jotted down the listing of the different plantings there. How does that compare to what the criteria would be based on our city requirements?
I think there's a,
It's noted on sheet C7 in the lower left-hand corner, where it says riverfront landscape requirements. And it shows what's required for the riverfront, and then there is a column that says CR 512. And then totally down on the bottom, it says total tree requirement. For riverfront, it shows required proposed, but it does show the CR 512. So instead of 16 canopy trees, it'll be 11 canopy trees. Instead of 15 understory, it'll be 3. Instead of 92 shrubs, it'll be 62. And of course, the opaque buffer was 33. That would have been the same on either, because that was for the conditional use requirement.
I think it's noteworthy also that the last couple of waivers that we've recommended on the Indian River Drive area have been, have used the 512 as kind of a baseline for that. So,
Most of them ones have been, most of the waivers have been for the foundation requirements,
Yeah.
because those are heavy-duty requirements.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you can get those perimeter in, but it's once you hit the foundation, it seems to be the
yeah.
hard ones.
So it doesn't sound like that's an issue with landscaping with the residential around there, having the fewer amount of plantings.
On the south side, it'll be a 6-foot opaque landscape buffer, so there'll be 33 plants along there. They have the option of doing, it could be a fence, an opaque fence also. The property to the north is also a residential property, but at this time, it's overgrown pepper trees. It has not been developed, and we're not going to require it on the north side. But with regards to this, because the south property has been cleared and it is actively an active residential use, yes, they'll be required. And that's not going to change whether it was 512 or the riverfront. That is required from one of the conditional use criteria.
Okay. The last question I had was, there's an existing irrigation well, and is that permissible with city code to keep that in use with being served by the county water supply?
It shows an irrigation pump also on the plans with the well.
There will be new well there. I don't think there's existing well there. If there'll be new well, we're going to put a new well there. You know, Frank?
That's the one that's south on the edge of the property line is a new well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it does show the irrigation pump next to the house. And that's consistent with the county's, with the utilities. Yeah.
And there's a retention area that's kind of concreted in the back of the structure. Looks like a grassy floor to it. Is there any plans for recreation in that area or anything, or is that just primarily retention?
It's retention only, no. It's only 18-inch deep, and it's only retention area, yeah.
Okay. I know people can get very creative sometimes, that's why I ask. Okay, that's the extent of my question.
Okay, Ms. Kettenberg.
Yeah, I have a question as to, was there any consultation regarding the way the roadway, Davis Street comes to a T at where it appears almost the cars would be backing out? And I would guess that because we're talking bed and breakfast, this would be oftentimes perhaps people who are not familiar with the traffic flow. So was there any consultation with involving that? Does this meet
It was
safety
actually,
standards?
after the city engineer had visited the site, it was realized this is version 2. It's actually been flipped. And the original plan did have the driveway was actually in line with the pedestrian walk. And so there was some meetings with the engineer, wondering if the crosswalk could be relocated. That's part of the plan for the presidential street. So it was the compromise was flipping the site so that at least that driveway wasn't in line with the pedestrian walkway.
Maybe to highlight too, if you're not aware, on the Davis Street corridor right now, Davis Street right now has a large median island, and the two travel lanes are separated out. In the overall future plan, if we get to the future plan, like the presidential streets, the road will be a single road combined together, so there won't be a large median island. There'll be parking on the side like the presidential streets we have right now, those just recently constructed. And so where the curb returns right now are shown on the west side with the crosswalk, everything fits in for the future development of that corridor. And so we had concerns when the original driveway was a lot closer to the intersection, the impacts that you're talking about, a car pulling back out and actually being in the intersection, which is a conflict you can't have. And so they've taken care of that by flipping it.
Okay. I guess I also have a concern about the size of the parking spaces, and I also have a concern of what we call a compact car. I think I've been down this road before. The car that I drive now, I thought was a compact car, but I understand it's really a mid-size car. And as time goes on, we have no control over the manufacturers and what they call what at any point in the future. So that concerns me.
We wanted to also note, we did check the code with regards to compact spaces. If the project has more than 20 spaces, there is an allowable amount of compact spaces that you can have. So this can be proposed, but it will require another variance to have that as a compact space.
Okay. No further questions at this time.
Mr. Reyes.
I was curious, the way these cars are backing out of here, there's no bollards or anything near these structural supports. There wouldn't be any space for that, would there be? Are you're limited to space there? Is that why?
No, there won't be any space.
I mean, especially that compact space, when he's backing out, you're showing it going right at a structural beam there or support. And I would say you would at least need to add a bollard there if we were gonna go forward with that. The wetland line and the mangrove area in the back, the construction's not gonna affect any of that, right? And when was that last delineated, that wetland line?
Let me see.
I see it on the survey from January.
I think there was a Scribner's error. It says July 13, 31, but I think that was supposed to be 13, the mean high water line. And we had requested, if we needed to know too, if DEP or St. John's needed an upland area from the wetland line. And it was, we do have correspondence that there was no upland needed. The soil erosion control plan does show that there will be the proper silt fence and whatever they need to make sure that under construction that nothing is going into that wetland. And I'm presuming that the construction will be from east to west, starting with that stormwater pond and then getting to the building when they begin construction.
another question I had, and this is, it's kind of way out there. Have you thought of a parking machine? I've seen that on sites now, that, you know, the tenant just pulls up to the front and it takes your car and parks it for you. I don't know what the cost of that would be, but you might be able to get all your spaces based on that. So that you look into a parking machine.
It's called a valet.
Sorry, it is. It's being used more on these signs. Very, very fancy. Not Dubai, but we're almost there. Yes? No?
Well, they have to use all the time and they never drive, then they'll be occupied.
I have no further questions.
Mr.
Thank you.
McManus, do you have any questions?
Yes, I don't have a problem with the landscaping going to the 512 landscaping ordinance, and I don't have a problem with, I mean, there's only 3 cars there, the width being reduced from 22 feet to 12 feet in the driveway. I don't have a problem with those, but I truly can't see how those cars are going to back out of those spaces and then turn around to go out onto the main road in a forward position instead of a reverse position. And my other problem is that 3 of the spaces are going to be mitigation spaces, and they're going to have guests, and where would they be located? The guests couldn't be pulling suitcases down the street.
Well, there's a Captain Haram, Jackson Street parking there, which is only 300 feet from the project. So that is along the Jackson Street, there's a part of the public parking there on the north of the project, so which is not that far away.
That's not Captain Hiram, talking about Butchers, right? Talking about Captain Butchers.
Captain Bush, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's the,
Big parking area there.
yeah,
There's a lot of parking there
Lot of
along
parking,
Jackson Street,
yeah, I think the city owns 20 or 30 spaces in
Yeah.
there.
which is not
Okay.
far away, yes.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Carter? Mr. Alvarez?
Yeah, my question is, so the driveway is going into actually the structure, so the driveways and you're gonna park underneath?
Right, right.
No, I don't have any question.
Okay, the parking in lieu of fund. I don't see anything in the code that stipulates what percentage of the required parking spaces can or cannot be put into that fund. At one time, I thought it was half, but I don't think it actually says that in there.
And no, the code says that if you have a parking agreement for some off-site parking, say if there was a business across the street and you shared parking, you couldn't have more than 50%. But the parking in lieu, the only number that they use is that 30 maximum parking spaces.
okay.
But it doesn't, there is no percentage of what parking in lieu. Of course, that is all part of the review. If you feel 50%,
Yes.
certainly we wouldn't want somebody having 1 parking space and paying for 5,
Yeah.
like that, but.
Okay. All right. The parking, I've seen a lot of condo buildings in South Florida that have very tight parking spaces. The issue comes about that they do have, and the interesting thing that Mr. Reyes brought up, they do have bollards on just about all the structural components, and that dramatically reduces more the turnaround space in here. If you put bollards, especially around the structural columns that are in here, it doesn't take a whole lot for an automobile, take an Expedition, that rams into a support column that's not part of a wall to mess that column up.
A typical bollard on a roadway is 6 inches.
Yeah,
So you're losing right there a foot.
yeah, so on both sides, you lose an additional foot. I kind of followed along with your example, and I cut out some yellow pieces of paper, and I personally see how I think it seems to be very difficult to use anything other than the handicap space that's in this garage. I mean, it would be possible, for example, for the owner to have this parking space number 2 kind of as an owner's space, because they're going to be a little bit more careful getting in and out maybe and understand the turns of that. I just don't see parking space number 3 being usable as a parking space for a for a guest in the bed and breakfast to park in. The turnaround area is another issue, is that if you pull through this 12-foot drive into the interior and you pull into the turnaround area, especially if you're pulling into the turnaround area with a handicapped van, it's very difficult to get that van back out of that turnaround area without a lot of maneuvering. And once again, that's just another issue waiting to happen. So, I mean, I guess I need to say up front when I produce these questions, this is a fantastic mixed-use project for what the city, I think, wants on Indian River Drive. So, you know, with the residents and the commercial use, it's just that the parking really bothers me that we're setting ourselves up for this. I personally would be more inclined, I know what the staff said, but I would be more inclined to say 1 parking space with 5 in lieu of spaces as opposed to 3 parking spaces with 3 in lieu of spaces on this, and not actually count those other 2 as parking spaces, if that is something that we can discuss as we go through this process. But I do want to open it up to the public, because that's at the point we are right now with the project. So let me, we'll get back with you in a second. Let me open this up to anyone from the public who would like to speak in opposition of this request. Just raise your hands and come on up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Susie Stoutenberg. I'm the owner of 1686 Indian River Drive. That's the lot directly south of the B&B proposed property, which also includes the lot on the corner, on the southeast corner of Davis Street and Indian River Drive, which is across from the proposed B&B. Behind that little house, it's joining the property 607 Davis Street, which is the Davis House Inn, a small motel, not a B&B. I have owned and operate this business with the help of my family for 10 years. Let me just say, our guests park on our property. They surely don't want to be told to park in the nearest public parking space, which is in front of Captain Butcher's, and then walk it back. Not all guests that rent a room come in 1 car. Some come in 2 cars. Some come with a boat attached to the car. Some come in a handicapped van. Some meet their friends at the inn, and they come in a car. We get deliveries that come in a truck. We have help that comes in a car. So you see where I'm going. The 1 space required per room is a minimum. The proposal for this B&B, there is in reality hardly any parking that is reasonable. If a guest arrives at 11 o'clock at night, you're going to have a note there, up, parking lot full, go down the road? It's not even realistic. Allowing a commercial property so large on a 50-foot lot is not saving our Sebastian or our lagoon. They're the slogans we've recently heard. More cars backing onto Indian River Drive at an intersection is not safe. Where is the parking for a delivery, and where is the turnaround? Is it the riverfront sidewalk, or will it be my property, either adjoining or across the street? Or will it be my paved parking area at the inn? I don't want to be a policeman. I don't want to have cars towed. I don't want to be an angry neighbor chasing trespassers. I want to be able to operate my business to meet my obligations. And as you know, riverfront tax obligations are severe. What is a guarantee if you grant this bed and breakfast that it does not turn into a duplex or just a residential home? Are there provisions for that? Maybe 6 months from now, the folks say, bed and breakfast is a dream of a lot of women, till they get it. I've lived it. If you permit large lot coverage without adequate parking, and other waterfront property owners do the same, what happens to the riverfront? The sidewalk will become just a path, not the pride of Sebastian it now is. Continued permitting of variances diminishes the existing regulations. Please don't permit 10 pounds of potatoes in the 5-pound bag, and stick to the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Robert Nilsson. I have the property immediately to the north of the proposed development. And one thing I'm a little bit unclear about, I'm not sure if this is the proper venue to address that, is the fact that although my property is currently covered with pepper trees, I'm in the process of removing those. There's no barrier required on the north side. I'd like to see that addressed. But also, I just pretty much echo most of Susie's concerns and think that this is a little too big of a project for the size lot that is currently available. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
John C. Fairchild. I was wondering, this structure, is it going to have any impact on the wetlands in that area? It's a little bit damp down there.
Yeah, there's a wetlands report. And
Pardon?
There's a report on the wetlands impact, and they've designated that the back part of that lot continue to be protected wetlands. So the impact on that has been evaluated, yes.
It should be all right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
We hope. Thank you.
That engineer's report was accepted by the...
It was, and to then verify this, I've had meetings with St. John's on other projects. Because I was there, I asked the St. John's engineers about this project. It does meet the requirements. However, just like this commission, they have concerns regarding during construction times, any impact to that wetland.
Yeah. And so that's going to require some pretty heavy silt fencing back there that, yeah.
Yeah, we are not touching the wetland.
Oh, yeah. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this request? All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in support of this request?
It is a...
Would you give your name, please?
I'm sorry, I'm Kathy Gingras, and we're going to be co-owners. It is a mixed-use property, and ours is not a commercial endeavor. It's a residence with conditional commercial use. We're not looking to be part of the bar scene or Captain Harmon's or anything like that. We're looking to be a quiet B&B. The kids want to go down the street while mom and dad stay, have a quiet evening. That's the idea. It is our understanding that part of the reason we couldn't move the crosswalk a little bit south was that the 5-year put-off for Davis Street will be moved up, and there should be the diagonal parking there by the time that our structure is finished.
It's in the master plan, but the time period has never been identified. The funding source for that project is still on the books, but there's no funding right now actually it's not even in the 5-year budget.
Yeah, because the capital improvement plan doesn't show that for next year.
No, it's not even in the 5-year budget. It is in the master plan for the riverfront areas. When we did the presidential streets, we did all the streets.
Yeah.
This was one of the streets we have listed, but it's not on the next 5-year program.
Right, okay.
You never know what you hear.
Okay.
Okay. So we, of course, we're going to have furniture delivered before we ever open, but we're going to have 4 rooms. We do not expect to be at capacity. We built our business plan around the minimum 25% capacity that any financer would approve. It is our intention to be very considerate of the wetlands. We don't want to have anything disturbing them. That's what we would like to preserve on the waterfront. The only activity that might occur there is we might look into a small pathway so somebody could put in a kayak.
Which I don't think with the restriction on the wetlands, you're going to be able to do anything on that riverfront.
Okay.
No. And that, to me, even the retention pond falls within that criteria, so you're not going to be able to put anything in that retention pond either, I don't think.
I think the pond is outside, but any activity within the wetland will be restricted to 0.
Now, you said 4 rooms. It shows 3 guest rooms and then the master, and then the owner's suite. Is that the 4th?
On the second level, there's the owner's suite, and then there's also room to have a 4th unit.
On the, talking about it's the 3rd level of the structure, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it shows a bedroom, which doesn't show an exterior entrance into that bedroom. Shows the owner's suite.
It doesn't at this time. Wayne asked us to do it this way. We said that though we have talked with the state of Florida, we would need a waiver. The state of Florida's handicapped requirements are stronger than the national, but if 25% of our overall, like we're going to have 3 rooms which are totally handicap accessible, the 4th room, there would be a staircase. We would then close off the access to that area from our space, and then we would put a door into the hallway.
Okay, because as the owner's suite, you don't have to have handicap access, but as a commercially rented room, you do have to have handicapped access. So you could not have a 4th room on that top floor, correct?
Well, I'm not sure of the exact code, but they have talked to Wayne, and there is some sort of exemption that you can apply for that top floor. Definitely the 2nd floor had to be handicap accessible, hence the lift that they're putting in. But I don't know what the requirements are to get that exemption, but there is an exemption that I know Wayne had talked to them about, our building official.
National requirements for a bed and breakfast for 4 rooms or less does not require it, but Florida law does. I could look up her name, it's Kathleen, like mine. She, at the state, she said, put in the waiver, it's going to take probably 6 months, and we just didn't want to go to that until we...
So you're viewing the owner's suite as the south side of the 3rd floor, the bedroom, the restroom, the bathroom,
Correct.
so forth. And you're viewing on the north side, that room is actually going to be a 4th rentable room.
Correct.
Assuming you get the appropriate waivers from the state.
Correct.
And that's why we required the 6 parking spaces.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure I understand.
And we built that into the traffic study and everything else.
Yeah, okay, all right. Dina, thank you.
Thank you.
Does the applicant have anything they'd like to say to address the public comment?
But as she said, we don't expect 100% occupancy, so it'll be only 20%, maybe 50%, only 2 rooms will be occupied one night, and that's what is there. So I don't see any traffic problem, any loading, unloading problems. And the only thing I see as for the Frank comment is the 3rd parking space, which is, I have requested for that, make it compact, and then I'll show that exhibit of the compact car is working fine, so. Thank you.
Oh, I have one more question. I just noticed it. The 6-inch pad for the lift station driveway that's on the north side of that property where you're going in by the lift station, that pad leaves it's not in a line. By moving the driveway, the crosswalk is not physically connected to the sidewalk anymore. That lift station pad, if it's realigned slightly, would connect the crosswalk with a concrete walk to the sidewalk.
That's a maintenance driveway?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Indian River County's, their lift station. They have a certain requirements to get their vehicle in there.
Yeah, all I'm saying is if you slide it about less than a foot south, it connects direct line with the crosswalk as opposed to having part of the crosswalk not connect via walkway to the sidewalk. That's just something I noticed looking at the plan. Because now we've got, the crosswalk's going to sit there, and the south side of the crosswalk is going to be on grass as opposed to on concrete. But that's just,
Yeah. So,
okay, the comment that we had about the barrier on the north side.
Yes, and thank you. I wanted to address that because Mr. Nilsson was in to speak to staff this week. I had kind of said that we would get with the city attorney to determine if we needed to also include the variance for that side, if we looked at it as a residential use, and if we needed that barrier. The discussion is that clearly the south side has an active residential use. The north side was still, at this time, it is still, it hasn't been touched. There are still the vegetation hasn't been touched, so it looks like an unused lot. I'm going to defer that to Mr. Ginsburg on if it is something that's required to also include the barrier and the variance for the setback on that side.
Okay, Mr. Ginsburg.
This is not a clear-cut issue, but I don't view it as residential, as an overgrown, pepper-treed, non-residential use there. The argument on the other side is it's part of a larger residential lot on the other side of the street, and as you mentioned, you've got it, the tax assessor views it as one lot. The west side is residential, the east side isn't. Well, they view it as one lot. Maybe uncharacteristic of members of my profession, I'm looking at it in reality. In reality, it is not used as a residential site. And I view the issue as the purpose of having the barrier is to protect residents on the other side. There are none. And it's not being used as the south side is, as part of a residential lot. The south side is being used for the recreational area for the house on the west. This isn't.
Sir, it's not.
That's just my view.
We've gone past that. You can't address the commission at this time. No, you can't. You can't address this at this time.
Well, how do I address it?
No, you can't. I'm sorry. This is a. This is a.
I'm in the process of removing those pepper.
Okay, sir. You said that already. You can't. You really cannot address this. We have a process. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, and we have to go through the same thing that they all do. Believe me, we heard what you said. Okay. What's the impact on the landscape requirements to put the buffer on the north side?
It would require a 6-foot opaque buffer. That can be a fence and/or landscaping. If we mimic what's going to go on the south, they're proposing 6-foot crepe myrtles or wax myrtles, and there's a 33 of them based on the 1 per 36 inches on center. So it's going to be around there. It's going to be between 30 and maybe 40 type of plants if you use that, or it could be an opaque fence.
Okay.
There is, I think, only just one little area where it's maybe a little hard is where that lift is. There's a foot difference between the landing there. So, and the way that wall is, and then there's going to be a safety fence. That already is going to be about 5 or 6 feet. Right. So that area can be considered.
Yeah, but now those crepe myrtles are not in. They're not. That's not in addition to what's already on the north side. That's what would be required.
No, that's just the buffer. There's still the tree counts of 1
Right.
per 20 or whatever it was, 25. This would be, and they have to be 6-foot opaque at planting. But we felt that instead of the 1 per 24 inches, 1 per 36, to get a decent size hedge plant in there, and that's how we had calculated it. Now, if they put it in 1 per 36, at 36 inches on center, and it's still not opaque, based on the conditional criteria, we will say, you need to go in and infill and plant some plants in there. It's going to have to be opaque.
Okay, and I know it's rudimentary, but looking at this on Google Earth, that street view, that the plantings on that north side lot are right at the property line. I mean, so if you put plantings on this property line, you'd have to force them into the other plants, right?
The overhanging on some of the overgrowth,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
So that side, if you're going to request it, maybe a fence would be, PVC fence or something may be more appropriate on that north side.
I think we have to discuss that. I understand what you said about but with the residential lot on the west side, it seems to me that if the variance requirement, if the setback requirement is between residential property, that is a residence on the west side, and it is a single lot. So the real question in my mind is the fact that it's overgrown. There's other city statutes basically that says an overgrown lawn has to be cut back 5 feet from the property line. That's separate from this. So
If it becomes a nuisance to the
right,
lot, which on a
right.
vacant lot, there's technically no nuisance at this point
yeah,
yet.
so I think it's something we need to think about as we talk about this, as to whether maybe we might want to consider that a residential lot for the setback criteria.
Even though it's not my place to talk, I'll be happy to.
We can't, don't interrupt, please. Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, that's,
The city staff, anything else?
No, just based on discussion, to consider the recommendations or the proposals on the staff report.
Okay.
We'd like to, if we do need to, if you do consider those, there may be the added variance for the compact space. So there would be an additional variance. And the variance regarding the residential, if you decide you need that for the north side also. I believe, though, that we would still, staff would still recommend approval for that variance on both the north and the south side setback.
Okay. I think it's time now to go into commissioner's deliberation on this.
Could I ask a question
Yes.
while Mr. Kozlowski is still here? We've talked about parking and changing 1 to a compact, leaving 3 still on site. What is the feeling of the project manager about possibly adding 1 more off-site parking? I know it's extra dollars, but it would perhaps open up some avenues for less intensive use of the parking area, and maybe instead of using it as a compact area, use it for something else, so you wouldn't be forcing a car to park there, or allowing them to park there and creating problems down the road. What's your opinion on possibly 4 off-site in lieu of?
that's the other option, yes.
I'd like to weigh in on that a little bit. I think there's pros and cons, but I think the commission could consider, do you want to open that door and start to set precedent where we have sites that overbuild, knowing that they can put only 1 or 2 of their parking requirements on site and buy the parking in lieu to, relieve themselves from that requirement. The code, it's doable. The code does not, there's no limit on the parking in lieu at this time. But based on, I think a door would be open, which has value in some situations, and in some, I don't know if it would be appropriate.
That would be it. That decision, I think, would hinge itself greatly on whether the amount of money in the parking in lieu of fund per space could actually build a parking space or not, and I just don't think it can. So the question is, does the city want to build parking for people who aren't providing it at a city deficit? And I don't know if that's a good move. I mean, I wouldn't want to recommend that. So I agree with what you're saying on that personally, just because of that reason.
Just a thought, wanting to get it out on the table, see what...
Okay.
Is that third space being created by that 4th bedroom that they want up there on the owner's suite?
Yes, the parking breakdown is that you need 2 spaces for the residential unit, and then 1 space for each hotel or rentable unit. So proposed, there's 4 rental that would be the max that they can, and then the 2, that's how we got the 6.
Right now, the way it is, before we getting the waiver from state, it's be 3 rooms and 1 residence, so we need 5 parking based on that.
Would you be able to put a buffer in that? I mean, you have a real skinny swale along that north side there, or the west side, northwest side. Would he be able to plant, would you be able to put we're talking about possibly putting a buffer there on the west?
The north side.
North side, but
Yeah,
It's northwest.
yeah.
I don't know that you can put planting there, is it? Because you have a swale there going through there.
the swale is on both sides, north and south, and buffer will work. If you go for the buffer, we could have a fence or something. So.
Other question I have, and it's for the city. I've seen many seasonal rentals just north of here, along this roadway. How do they deal with their parking?
The city limits go up to the Archie Smith Fish House, so anything north of that is going to be county.
So that's how they're dealing with it?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of this along there, and it's been fine, in my opinion.
Well, now, if you're talking like a house that's rented out seasonally, it's still considered a residential use. At this time, the city doesn't have, I know Vero Beach is trying to address their seasonal rental situations with a lot of the cars, and that is the issue, is that they are getting larger houses with, maybe 4 families sharing them and a lot of additional cars, and the neighbors are complaining of the cars. We haven't had an issue or problem yet at Sebastian, so at this time we don't have any the seasonal rentals.
We will.
But none of those properties to the north are considered commercial. They're single-family residents that possibly are being rented out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, does anyone have any questions, once again, for the applicant? City staff? Okay, no, thank you. All right, now, it's not unusual for bed and breakfast. I know it's unusual for Sebastian because we don't think of ourselves as a big city. We think of ourselves as a little fishing village, but it's not unusual for bed and breakfast to be located in areas that people would question why people even go to them. So, the fact that there's 3 off-site parking spaces doesn't really bother me a whole lot personally, but what bothers me is this underground parking space is just not usable. I have a real issue personally with thinking that we're going to have large numbers of vehicles, 3 or 4 a day is a large number in my mind, backing out onto Indian River Drive right at the intersection of Davis Street. And that's what's going to happen in here, is that people are going to pull in, they're going to find they can't pull into a parking space, and then they're going to be forced to put it in reverse and try to back out of the garage. I don't think the 3rd parking space is usable. Personally, I agree with and I'm not 100% sure the 2nd parking space is very usable. I can see the handicap space can get in and out of. And I understand the reason that there's a limit with a 20 parking space requirement or greater with the ability to have compact cars, because you start getting into statistical probabilities now where if you have 20 cars, there's going to be some compacts. But if you have 4 and they all come in big SUVs, you have a different issue there. And you have a large number of people trying to back out on that street, and I have kind of an issue with that. It doesn't bother me to have 3 spaces off-site. It does bother me to have a parking entrance ramp that is almost going to require a back out. And I don't know whether everybody remembers this, but Sebastian for years had a major problem with diagonal on-street parking because no one wanted back out onto Indian River Drive. And now we're talking about people backing out directly onto a sidewalk that's 5 feet from the road without any visible line. Because if you're in an SUV backing out of that underground, the rear end of your vehicle is in Indian River Drive before the front wheel, the windows of that vehicle clear the building. So you really can't see what's behind you going out on Indian River Drive. I personally see that as a real issue with this concept. I'd like the whole mixed-use thing. We've talked many times about that. I think that's where we should be down there. I just have an issue with the concept of the vehicles having to pull up underneath that building. That's my personal take. Does anyone else have any comments? Yes.
I agree also. I think that the concept is great, that the lot doesn't fit it. I think the lot is way too small for the proposed structure. This is less than half the size of an ordinary residential lot, and yet we're putting an extra-large structure on it with requirements for more than normal family parking. And I'm also concerned that there doesn't seem to be any provision for storage of all the maintenance things that go with taking care of a property, your lawnmower, your volleyball set, all the stuff that people use to maintain their property. There really isn't any storage space for it as it appears here. I also have a little bit of knowledge about occupancy rates in the area, and if you think you're only going to get 25% occupancy, you are grossly mistaken. If you build it, they will come. You will be, until you tell people no, you will be occupied on the riverfront. So that doesn't wash for me, that it'll only be half used some of the time. No, you're wrong about that. I think it's too much building for the site. I also think that regardless of what the people who own the residential lot on the north end are currently doing with it, it is a residential lot, and they should be protected in case they decide to take down all the pepper trees and put in a lawn with a croquet set. They need to be, that's their right. I guess like I say, I'm in favor of the concept, but I think this is too much for this particular piece of ground. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd like to toss something out that I think, in my opinion, we're overly concerned about the amount of traffic and the protection issue with a screen. It's basically a bed and breakfast. It's not a hotel. It's not going to have the turnover that a hotel would. And it's all basically residential use. There's no space here for games or nets or anything like that. So basically the people will be here maybe to socialize a bit and sleep. And of course, you are beautiful Indian River Lagoon, which is why they come, correct? So I view it as we need to be realistic in terms of what we see as the potential traffic issue and the screening for other neighbors and the potential that they may have. If you look at the sides of the building itself, it doesn't really show that much as far as overlook other than the balconies. So my thought is just that, it's not an overuse, it's not a hotel, it's a bed and breakfast, which is a lot lesser intensive use.
Okay. Comments? Anybody? Okay, I'll entertain a motion if we have one.
I would move to deny this.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any comments about the motion?
I didn't catch who made the second.
Mr. Carter?
Mr. Carter. Okay. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Reyes,
No.
and that was a motion to deny.
To deny.
Okay.
Yes.
No. Mr. Roth,
No.
Mr. McManus,
Yes.
Mr. Kieselbaugh, I'm sorry, Mr. Dodd,
Yes.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Cottenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Reyes.
No.
Did you get, you didn't call Mr. Alvarez, I don't think.
I think you took my vote twice there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we start over?
Well, you can get,
Okay, let's start over, just for the record. Mr. Reyes,
No.
Mr. Roth,
No.
Mr. Alvarez.
Now, is this a motion to deny?
A motion to deny.
Yes, I motion to deny.
Okay. Mr. McManus,
Yes.
Mr. Dodd,
Yes.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Cottenberg.
Yes.
Motion to deny passes 5-2.
All right, thank you, John. Okay, let's go on to, we have no unfinished business. Does anyone from the public have any input they'd like to make on matters that we did not discuss this evening? No, seeing none. We have no new business. Does the staff have any matters they'd like to discuss?
None tonight.
I just wanted to, I'm sorry, real quick. In the motion, the minutes that you just approved, if you noticed under staff matter or commissioner matters, you had brought up the matter of container housing. And we did have another call at staff for somebody wanting to bring in a container house. So we did bring the issue up to the city manager. It is going to be on the December city council meeting for them to decide if, to give direction to the planning and zoning commission on what they would like to do.
On what are they bringing up on,
For the container housing?
the container housing?
Yes, city council. So they'll discuss that in December to not discuss what type of, but to what type of direction that they would like to give staff and the commissioner.
Okay, so the council is going to say yes or no, they do or do not want container housing?
Yes, and if they do not, then they will most likely direct the commission to come up with some codes or how you would like to regulate them.
So how do we have public hearings if the decision's already been made?
No, this is
And I'm
just...
not questioning that, I'm just asking that question. Why would we not have that as part of the overall process?
You can, but we're dealing with the city manager. He's got an issue in front of him, and he's decided to take it to the city council for advice and for direction.
Okay.
That's, I think, what Dory is saying is informational to the P&Z, that has occurred. That just so that you're aware that this might be an issue in the future. But you can discuss this at any time. You can weigh in with an ordinance or a recommendation at any time. But the fact is that this is an issue that's coming forward. It's in the manager's hands now. He intends to ask the city council. We don't know what the city council will do with that, with his presentation. And what Dory is saying, it may be coming back to you for some kind of consideration with regard to ordinances, proposed ordinances.
Okay.
Depending on what the city council does, then I'll be working with the community development department to present you with some proposals for your policy-making judgment.
All right.
That's what I meant to say.
I'm just a process kind of guy. And when processes don't go this straight way, they become confusing. Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any matters they'd like to discuss?
Any what?
Matters that you'd like to discuss, anything?
Yes, I would. On the parking mitigation, I'm not a big fan of that. But if you're going to make the mitigation, I think you have to make it a high enough amount that it will actually create those parking spaces somewhere else. And I think the amount should be no less than $10,000 a space. If you're building a commercial building, you'd be very happy to pay it to get the extra spaces. And I think it's my suggestion.
Okay. I think that the council probably at some point in time, it might be appropriate to ask them to think about whether the amount is high enough. I know you probably have some pretty good ideas now with the work on the presidential streets, what it would cost to build additional parking. And
Sorry. The most recent ones we did over there off of Rella's, it was about half that price. We were able to put those 7 parking spaces in, about $5,000 each.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you were building those as part of that overall project. What if you had to build a lot standalone?
No, those are the 7 we put in by themselves.
Yeah,
Remember, right
okay.
across from Rella's. Just the 7 parking spaces are angled, stamped concrete too,
Yeah.
stamped concrete. It's about $5,000 each.
So the increase is not as dramatic as it was indicated, but it is an increase over what we're currently charging.
It would be more and more dependent on the type of
Yeah.
facility. If it's a larger parking space that has lighting and other type of drainage, then the cost will go up.
Well, higher, yeah. So I know that when that was originally done, there was a lot of extra parking spaces on US 1 in areas where there really wasn't a need to worry about building parking because there was plenty of city-owned parking space to do that. And that may have changed a little bit between that time and now. So maybe it is appropriate to think about that, but that's a council issue. That's not something that we deal with. Do that. Mr. Reyes?
I have some questions in reference to the drainage work going on in the city. In my area right now, they've been cutting like a 3-foot swale through these backyards within the easements. And to me, it's not being done properly. The water is now sitting there. I haven't seen them putting any grade stakes out there to see which way they're making this swale, the water flow. Most of the ones they've done in my area have still water sitting in them now, and I think it's going to create an environmental problem later on with mosquitoes and stuff. The lawns that are mowed properly up to the center line of the swale, the city has, I guess, their maintenance lawn people coming through there now, and they're dropping their lawnmowers down all the way down, and they're burning a rut right down your yard within their easement, but it's terrible the way this is being done, and I have some concern. As the city providing the workers a plan to work from, is there a detail of what you're doing with the swales? What is the plan?
What Commissioner Reyes is talking about is we have a contracted ditch cleaning person going out there, a contractor doing our ditch cleaning. This is the first time, and his zone is Zone 1. He's finished off 3 of the zones. Zone 1 is more challenging, which is the Easy Street area, because the ditches were never touched. In some of those areas, he has gone a little deeper, and he has caused, in some areas, a larger mess than what he started with. His goal was to create a flow line to flow the water. Our inspectors are out there. I understand the concerns. We've had numerous calls and numerous issues. And we will be going back out there with our own city crews to do some final adjustments later on once we have a chance to let the water dry off. But we had to get in there to adjust some of the flow lines to make it flow. We do know where the water goes. And sometimes going out there with an excavator and trying to do the best you can with, even with the flow lines is hard because you have utilities out there, other issues and other obstructions, fence lines and trees. It's not as easy as just draw a straight line, but we are aware of those concerns, and you're not the only ones. We've had numerous calls and numerous complaints, and we'll be addressing each one of those. On some of the areas, we'll be going back out there and putting some sod or some grass to make it more workable. In the future, I don't think we'll be doing this again, where we'll be going and taking out areas that you can mow and take care of on your own. Now we created a pit, you could say, in some areas. And so we're aware of your concerns.
The reason I asked, I moved here in '06, and I seen it done once, and they used to come through there with like a plow for the road swale where we put the liners now. And that was terrible also. But what I'm getting at is you're taking the fill that's retaining the fill on the property and you're hauling it away. And now it's going to eventually, if you leave it alone again for another 10 years, it's going to go back into this, and you're going to come back and you're going to take fill again. So it is a big concern of mine, and I'm going to keep an eye on it and make sure it gets addressed. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like a little bit of an update, if you can, regarding Main Street. I see that there's some very slow working going on. And I also have a question about the new gigantic triangle. I travel down Main Street several times a day, every day, and now instead of going straight down Main Street, I have to head off to the side, then look backwards and turn my car completely around. It's an awkward turn, and I don't know why we had to change that.
To answer your first question on the Main Street, I actually gave a presentation last night to City Council regarding our paving. This ties back to the ditch cleaning again. The stormwater and the roads, there's a nexus. If we don't get the water off the roads, our roadways are falling apart.
Yep.
What happened in the recent storms we had that came in later this year, it slowed down our Main Street project to the point where Main Street wasn't supposed to have all this major work done. It's being done because there's some major problems, base failures, to the point where he's going out there and you see him digging it out. That wasn't part of the original plan because we thought the road was in better shape. It wasn't. We have other now streets. Last night I gave a presentation. We're going to spend another $700,000 this year. Council had a hard time accepting it, but the roads are falling apart in some areas. Overall, general sense, of the almost 160 miles of roadways, we have only 3.5% that are in bad condition. So overall, we're in okay condition, but we need to take care of our roads. That's what's happening with our Main Street. So he's moving along, the contractor. The triangle is an issue. You may not like the current situation. It'll be slightly perpendicular where he's turning it out. The current situation where the Fleming and Main Street was open access. Now it'll only be one directional westbound. You cannot go back out going eastbound on Main Street. You'll have to turn like a dog leg and tee up to Fleming, and it'll be a T then. It'll be straightened out. And that's why there's a triangle there, and it was made larger to get rid of that two-way traffic that was on Main Street. It'll only be now a westbound direction going in. You won't be able to go back out eastbound. You're going to have to go up to Fleming as a T, and then you can turn either direction. That's actually the safe way, and that should have been done a long time ago.
Doesn't feel safer. Not when you're driving it.
Wait until they get done.
Okay.
Questions down here? Anybody?
Yes. Yeah.
No, I'm fine.
I just want to know what's going on with this new subdivisions across the Main Street in Suncrest. They're doing all kind of constructions and drainage construction, utility constructions. They don't have any site plan approved yet.
Preliminary plat went before planning and zoning, and then, which you did a recommendation to City Council, and then the preliminary plat was approved by City Council. The next step in a subdivision process is the construction drawings, which does not go before any of the boards. It's approved by the city engineer. Then the next step is when they are either done with their construction or ready to sell lots, they will do a final plat, and the final plat will go before City Council. So there isn't any part of the subdivision process that requires a site plan. In essence, the preliminary plat was the site plan that you guys reviewed.
My concern is they're doing drainage connection, utility connection along Main Street, and all kind of thing. How they could do it, I think.
It's all part of the plan. The original site plans that you had all the drainage improvements identified. We have our inspectors out there. He's meeting all the requirements. That's the work that you're seeing on Main Street and the drainage connections that he has that ties into his site, to his retention areas, is all part of the plans.
Okay. Mr. Carter?
No.
Okay. We're adjourned.